heaven every time I walk in. You know?
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Sorry about the technical hitch. My phone fell off. So good morning. My name is Nick. I am a field signature artist with the Wella Company. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Modern Beauty Supplies for hosting this today. Today we're going to be focusing on our demi-permanent colour, which is called Colour Touch. Before we get started, I'm just going to get rid of some of this bottom bit through here. Before we get started, if you've got any questions to ask, if you look at the bottom of the screen, you should see some cards that have got a question mark on. If you can put your questions in there, and then as I'm going through the live, I can answer the questions by just retrieving it using the question cards. So, welcome. I'm from Vancouver, originally from the United Kingdom. So today, we have been focusing on this look through here. So I've left this quadrant for the live today. So what we're going to be doing is focusing on a creative colour melt, which has also got a little bit of a shadow route through there as well. So I've actually sort of did a little bit of a shadow route through that bottom through there. This is obviously the level that we started with. And then what we're going to be doing is showcasing some of the new shades that we have within Colour Touch. The collection's called the Bellini collections. So we have some very, very soft muted red tones. We have a level 8 red ash, which is super, super beautiful. We've also got a level 10 gold red, which is this really soft, delicate peach tone. And then we've also got some soft rose tones. We've got an 8-stroke 7.5, which is a level 8 brown red violet. And then what we've also got as well is an 8-stroke 3.5, which is a level 8 gold red violet. So they're really, really beautiful tones. Through this root area through here, what I decided to do is I decided to deepen it down a little bit just to give me a little bit more contrast. So the formula that I've used here, which is Formula A, this is equal parts of our 6-stroke 3.5, which is a level 6 gold red violet, and then the 8-stroke 3.5, which is a level 8 gold red violet. So that's really going to give me like a level 7. So I've actually created a 7-stroke 3.5. Then what I've done is I've done quite a little cool technique where I've actually alternated 2 different shades, and I've been playing around using different sort of techniques with them. So through the Formula B, that is our 9-stroke 7.5. So I did 20 grams of 9-stroke 7.5. And then I also added 1 gram of 0-stroke 5.6. So the 0-stroke 5.6 is a special mix. So it's an additive that you would add into the formula to actually make it a little bit more or a little bit less. So the 0-stroke 5.6 is the 5 is a red violet and the 6 is a violet. So just by adding a little bit of that into my level 9 brown red violet, it just give me a little bit more of a rosier tone through there. And then the Formula C is I've used 15 grams of 10-stroke 3.4, which is a level 10 gold red. I've added 5 grams of 8-stroke 4.1, which is a level 8 red ash. And then I've also added just 1 gram of 0-stroke 4.5, which again is a special mix. And then the stroke 4.5 is a red violet. So again, that's going to give me that little bit more of a slight blush tone into there. The tones are really beautiful. It's going to create that little bit more of a smokier sort of rose tone, which is really, really on trend at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get gloved up. Anybody got any questions so far? Is everybody having a good Monday? Happy Monday? So it's absolutely raining here in Vancouver. So if you hear a little sort of a noise of water, that is just the rain outside. We're also getting construction done to the front of my house. So hopefully they're not going to start until I've actually finished the live. So if you do hear some noises, please excuse the noises. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is the tools that I'm going to be using. I'm actually going to be using some slightly smaller brushes. With Colour Touch, the viscosity of Colour Touch is a little bit more looser. So if I was to use a wider, bigger comb for my shadow route, I might apply a little bit too much colour to that root area. So by the time I've actually started to pull it through a little bit to create that little bit more of a root stretch, I might find with the amount of colour that I actually used on the root, I might have actually applied too much and I might be stretching it too much. So if you're finding that you're doing a lot of shadow roots, and if you find sometimes that there's too much of a shadow, definitely look at the type of brush and the size of the brush that you're using, because you might be applying that little bit too much colour in that root area itself. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to take the section of hair, make sure everybody can see okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around the perimeter area first, and I'm just taking a small amount of colour, and I'm just going to go around that perimeter area first. Again, making sure that I don't apply too much product onto here, because like I said, by the time you've actually started to come through and you start to stretch it through a little bit, it will start to become a little bit too much. You know, again, when you're looking at sort of a lot of these shadowing techniques, you know, you've got lots of things like a root tap, you've got a shadow root, you've got a stretch root. It seems like every week we've got some sort of different type of root happening. And really all the differences between all these different shadowing techniques is how much or how little shadow that you have. So obviously a root tap, you're going to be putting the smallest amount of colour on that root area. And really all a tap is just to blend some lightening. You know, if you've actually gone in and you did some highlighting, and if that highlights have gone right to the root area, you might find you might just want to soften that root area a little bit just by tapping a little bit of a darker tone in there. So what I'm going to do is, once I've done my perimeter, I'm going to start working on a diagonal section. So by working diagonally, we're going to be putting a lot more blend into the hair. So think of it a little bit like if you're going to be putting foil into somebody's hair. If I was to come through and traditionally highlight the hair, because the hair falls this way naturally, if I woven the sections, what you're going to find, you're actually going to see lines in the hair. If I was to take the same type of highlight, a woven highlight, and if I put that into a diagonal, by the time that falls into a natural fall, I'm going to see so much more softness and so much more blend through there. So I always like to start at the bottom, especially if you're actually putting a little bit more of a deeper root, because we're not actually laying any hair over anything that's already been previously coloured. So I'm going to start at the bottom. And again, just taking a small controlled amount of product. And then coming in and just really just slightly just tapping the product into that root area. And then coming through. So the great thing I love about Colour Touch is our demi-permanent colour, okay? Colour Touch, we have two different developers. The first developer we like to call Gentle, which is called Gentle Emulsion. That is 1.96 volume and strength. So where you would use the Gentle Emulsion, you're typically going to use it when you're going to be toning the hair. You're also going to be doing it if you're going to be colour balancing. So colour balancing is a technique where you're going to refresh the lengths and ends on your permanent colour. So our whole philosophy at Wella is any time that you have permanent hair colour on the hair, and any time that you want to refresh that old permanent hair colour, we always recommend either going in with something that doesn't contain ammonia, which Colour Touch is an ammonia-free product, or something that has less ammonia in. So within our permanent colour, which is Colistin Perfect, and our Illumina colour, we have a special developer called Pastel developer. So Pastel is 6 volume in strength, so it's the same strength as our Colour Touch Gentle Emulsion. But in our Pastel, we have an ingredient called phosphoric acid. So what phosphoric acid is going to do, is going to remove 70% of the ammonia from your permanent colour. So I'm just going to get this so you guys can get a better view. It's going to just lock her into place. So that's the great thing about using Pastel. It will remove 70% of the ammonia from that permanent colour. So it allows you to tone the hair with a permanent colour. but it also allows you to colour balance the hair with a permanent colour. You're going to think, if you keep taking permanent colour through to the mid-shaft and ends of somebody's hair every single time, what do you think is going to happen to the hair? It's going to really do one of three things. If you keep taking permanent hair colour through to the mid-shaft and ends, it's either going to go darker, you're either going to be creating a porosity issue, and a lot of times when hair becomes porous hair rejects warm colours, but it'll start to absorb cool colours. So over a period of time, the mid-shaft and ends can start looking a little bit greeny looking. That's because you keep taking the permanent colour through. Also, if you have any warmth in the hair, if you're a red or a copper for your permanent colour, if you keep taking that permanent colour through, you're going to start browning out your copper tones and your red tones. So it's going to start looking warmer at the root area, and then it's going to start looking browner through the mid-shaft and ends. So we always recommend that when you colour balance, is to either use something that doesn't contain ammonia, like Colour Touch, or something that will remove the amount of ammonia, like our Pastel Developer. Yeah. We have an arsenal of toning tools within our Wella portfolio. Each product is really designed to do a particular job. I would say the vast majority of times, I would always tend to really sort of grab something like Colour Touch, because Colour Touch contains keratin, so it's very, very kind on the hair, makes the hair look super shiny, and we also have a glimmer pigment in there as well. So because of the glimmer pigment, what will happen is the hair will actually look extra shiny. So it's really great to make the hair feel better because of the keratin, but also it will look better as well because of the glimmer pigment we've added into it. So again, I'm just coming through, again, just working on that diagonal. And then coming through here, this will be my last section, and then I'm going to start to move the product down a little bit. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a wide tooth comb. And what we want to be doing is we don't really want to be combing it all the way through the hair. What we're going to be doing is we're just going to start to move it a little bit. So you can sort of see what I'm doing here. I'm just starting to move that product down a little bit. The reason why I'm using a wide tooth comb is if I used a comb like that type of thing, the finer teeth on the comb might pull too much of a line of colour through. I just want to keep it quite sort of staggered looking. So again, I'm going to come through, just starting to work that through. And what I do is when I start to work it, I start to work it in lots of different directions. So I'm coming in from the back, coming in from the top, coming in from the sides. So again, you can sort of see I'm just moving that product through. And then I'm going to come through, like so, and then start to move it. If you wanted to come back in afterwards, if you wanted to stagger it a little bit more, you can quite easily take that Formula A, which is a root colour, and you can also come back through and start to stagger it through a little bit. I don't want to sort of pull it through too much. So again, coming back through, just slightly moving that product and moving it down a little bit. Just be really careful not to pull the comb all the way through, excuse me, because you might actually get some slightly darker spots through here as well. So again, coming through, taking my comb, and then starting to sort of just pull through a little bit. If I wanted to create a little bit more of a high contrast lightning through there, so a lot of people call that more of like a money piece, I could quite easily just leave a little bit more of a blonder section out through there and don't put the root colour on that blonde section. But today we're not going to do that, we're just going to just do something a little bit more of a traditional sort of service. So now that I've got that stretched through, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with my second colour, which is Formula B. So the Formula B again is going to be 20 grams of 9/75, so a level 9 brown, red, violet, with 1 gram of 0/56, which is a special mix, so it's an additive. And that's going to be a red-violet tone. So that's going to just blush it out a little bit more. So I'm going to take my section. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to zigzag the section. Pull that to one side. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into that root area. I'm going to use my hand flat. And then I'm going to start to come through and start to create my zone 2. So coming in through here. So once I've done my zone 2, I'm going to take my third formula, which is formula C. So this is going to be my soft peach tone. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the back of my hand now to start to come through. And then I'm going to use my formula B just to come through and to blend in. So again, just using my fingers. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a comb, and then I'm going to just very, very slightly just blend through on these different zones. Okay, so quickly wipe my hands. Okay, next section. So section 2, what I'm going to do, so this section I did A, B and C. On this next section, again, we're going to be working in a zigzag section. On this section, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to work formula C, which is going to be my peach. And again, just really making sure that I'm blending them two colours together. Making sure I'm getting really good saturation. Slightly pulling it down a little bit. And then I'm going to come into my formula B. So again, lay it on the back of my hands. So the great thing about colour touch is you can use it in lots and lots of different scenarios. So you can use it for a demi-permanent surface. You can use it for low lighting. It's fantastic for low lighting. You can use it for colour corrections. You can also use it for grey blending. Within the colour touch range, there's several different families. So we have the traditional colour touch. Then what we also have as well is we have colour touch plus. So colour touch plus is designed to give you up to 70% grey coverage. Traditionally, in a demi-permanent world, typically you're going to get probably about 50% grey coverage with a demi-permanent colour. So Colour Touch Plus, you're going to be using that with our 13 volume, which is what we call Intense. So when you're going to use Intense, you're going to use the Intense developer if you want your result to be more intense. So you're going to be using that for grey blending. You're going to be using that if you want the tone to last longer. And you're also going to be using it as well is if you want a red or a copper to be brighter as well. You can also use our Gentle, which is our 1.9. And you can also use our Intense, which is 4% 13 volume. You can also use that with Blondor as well. I typically tend to use a lot of that with Blondor. I typically, with most lightning services, I mostly always start off with my 6 volume, and then I go on to my 13 volume, and typically onto my 20 volume. I always tend to stagger my developers. So again, you can sort of see before they actually sort of meet through here, what I like to do is I like to come through. I like to sort of use my fingers to make sure that they're blended well together. And then what I'll do is I'll just sort of come through and then just slightly just blend them a little bit more. You've got to be really careful not to use the same finger. So a lot of times you might use like these 2 fingers to blend. And then to blend the next colour, you might use these 2 fingers. I think the trick is with this technique as well is just keeping everything really clean, you know, making sure that your sections are really clean, making sure that your station's clean as well. Keep really organised with everything. Okay, so next section. So I'm going to go back onto A, B, C. So this is going to be my A, B, C. Making sure I get all that in the back. So again, placing my hand over. You can also use like a balayage board for this as well. So again, coming in. Make sure you get really good saturation through here. And again, start to stretch that through. Because there's not a lot of product through there, by the time I come to start to move it, there's not enough product to go through that mid-shaft and ends. So just again, when you're doing more of a melting technique, just be a little bit careful of how much product you have on. If you have too much, by the time you start to stretch it, there's going to be too much there. And then back into these ends. This is going to be my soft, dusty rose tone. And again, just using my fingers. And then again, just stretching through with my comb. This can also look really cool, you know, by using this technique, but also doing it with like semi-permanent colours. You know, really as well, the technique is great depending on the palette that you've used. I wanted something that was going to be a little bit more soft and a little bit more expensive looking. You know, something like this could be something good for somebody who's maybe that little bit older. So again, coming through, working in a zigzag section. Keeping that hair out the way. What I typically tend to do with my shadow roots is I would shadow root, I divide the head into quadrants, and I always make sure that I always put where the client's going to be wearing a parting, I always make sure that I part the hair where she's going to wear it. Then what I do is I start the back, and I do quadrant 1, and I do all the root areas first, and then stretch it all through. Then I do the same for quadrant 2, then quadrant 3, then quadrant 4. And then I come back in, and then I do mid-shaft and ends, starting in quadrant 1, then to 2, then to 3, and then to 4. Now, sometimes fine if you go through and do all the root areas first. By the time you've actually gone in there, and if you might have maybe applied a little bit of a line, if that starts to oxidize, it's really quite difficult to get rid of the line. So that's why I would actually just put the root areas in quadrants and then stretch before I go on to the next one. So we have a little question. Do you always do zigzags? So the main reason why I'm doing a zigzag, it's going to give me so much more blend between the 3 colours. So by zigzagging it, you're going to get pieces of each colour coming through. I don't always do zigzags, but for this type of technique, it's going to give you so much more of a blended sort of result. And you're going to see these little pieces of, you know, soft peach, and these little pieces of, you know, more of a smokier, dustier violet tone. So it can create this really beautiful, a little bit more like a 3D effect on the hair. So thanks for the question, I really appreciate that. Okay, so next section. I think I'm on this one. So again, coming through, using the flat of my hands. Making sure that I'm really sort of getting my brush in there. Again, just be careful how much product you have on, because obviously if there's a colour melt, we don't want to start to pull that through too much and have too much on the mid-shaft and ends. So again, just working the product in. And then mid-shaft and ends, so I'm going to go at the back of my hand. Work that product in. Get a little comb through. It's always really nice working with combs, with brushes like this. It's got the brush and the comb onto it. So each colour can have its own comb. And then again, coming through that root areas. Create a little bit more blend through that. So again, stretching through. And just really making sure that I'm working that product in the hair. So again, you can sort of see I'm just gently laying it over. If you're working with lots of contrasts, I would definitely recommend to start to maybe put some sort of separator in there, maybe a little bit of foil. But I'm just literally just gently just placing them over the top through that. If you have another question, are you alternating each section Absolutely. So the question was, are you alternating each section of the formula? So the sections I'm working on is section 1 is A, B, C. Section 2 is A, C, B. Then it's A, B, C, A, C, B. Thanks for your question. To avoid warmth and porosity, so Colour Touch is a demi-permanent colour. So obviously if you don't want any warmth or any flat, Colour Touch is fantastic for that. Depending on the texture of hair, depending on if you're going to create any shift through there. So if you've got very, very fine textured hair, what I would suggest is I'd probably suggest using Relights from Colour Touch, which is our acidic based demi-permanent colour. So thanks for your question. Appreciate the question. Okay, so coming on to the last two sections. Coming through, working my zigzag through here. So again, just be careful not to put any colour through here. So I'm making sure that my hands are clean. So coming through on a flat hand. And then working my formula through this area first. Give it a little bit of a stretch. You can also come through as well and just use your finger, just to give you a little bit more of a blend. And then again, coming through mid-shaft and ends. So again, you can sort of see through here when I come to start to stretch it. There's not enough colour through here to put too much product through the mid-shaft and ends. So again, come through. Again, you can use your scissor movement to start to stretch through. And then colour on the ends. Again, I'm going to flip over, use the back of my hand. And then work that product through. So again, we're coming through. Always give it a little bit of a comb. And then gently place that over. And then last section through here. So again, going to come through. So using an open hand, like so, gives me a nice sort of secured surface to paint on. So coming through. I find a lot of times as well, even if you're doing traditional toning, it's very rarely nowadays that we're using one tone, because clients typically want to, have a little bit more of a deeper root. Also as well is, if you've got different areas that's lifted differently, if you maybe got some old colour that you're trying to sort of battle through, and you created, a little bit more of a slight orangey mid-shaft, and it's a little bit more of a gold on the mid-shaft and ends, we'll have to use maybe 3 different toners anyway. So you'd obviously, for most toning, we very rarely nowadays tend to use just one toner. I think it's typically always 2 to 3 toners. Would you guys agree with that a little bit, Typically I tend to find that, there's always going to be that little bit more of a shadow, especially if you're hair painting as well, if you're doing some balayage. The trick is when you're doing balayage, it's controlling the amount of saturation. The more saturation you have, the more lift you're going to get. If you've got too much saturation in the wrong area, you're not going to get enough blend from the natural. So it's being able to control having less saturation where you've actually got this area here and getting more saturation mid-shaft and ends. So you're always going to get 2 different tones because you've got 2 different saturations coming through. So I'm just going to apply this colour. I see that there's a question in the question cards. So I'll answer that question in a second. So if you can hold on for a second. So again, I'm going to just stretch that down just a little bit more. And then again, I'm going to take my comb. Just making some stretching. And again, just use my fingers just to blend a little bit. And then last section is going to be my ends, so flipping onto the back. And again, just working that product through. And then where the two sort of joins, going to come through and just stretch the two together. And then just use my fingers to come through and to blend. Just make sure that if you're using fingers, don't use the same fingers that you've used here on here, because you can transfer the colour. So I would use these fingers here, and then I would use these fingers through here. And then obviously once you've done that, you're going to come through, and then you're going to wipe your hands in between each section. So again, here's the technique. So I'm going to check the question cards. As in the root tap. Yes, so the root tap is really just a tap itself would be very, very minimal. So a tap for me would literally be maybe half an inch, something like that, yeah? A root stretch or a shadow root would be that little bit more length through there, yeah? So the difference between all the different types of shadowing that you do at the roots will depend on how much product and how much you've actually moved it away through there. So you can sort of see as it's sort of starting to oxidize, you can sort of see them tones coming through. And you can sort of see I've just slightly just laid it over. Obviously, you know, because of the technique through here, you can sort of see I can easily take each section of hair and easily just move each section out. So just being just very gentle on how I'm actually placing it. I don't need to use any separators or anything like that. So this is my live over for today. So thank you so much for joining me today. Again, thank you to Modern Beauty Supplies for hosting us. Stay tuned for some more Instagram lives from the Wella company. Also as well, if you want to follow me on Instagram, my Instagram is Nick_Wella. Also as well, follow Wella Canada West as well, which is our regional Instagram for our region. So thanks so much. Have a great Monday. Thanks so much, and we'll see you soon. Thanks then. Bye.